Good afternoon, everyone. So after an mesmerizing five tracks which we had for past 2 days, and when I said mesmerizing, absolutely mesmerizing. I say that because of the kind of topics we had, the speakers we had, the knowledge what we all got. It was absolutely just amazing. And what better way to come to the end of our tracks? That is track number six. I think no better topic than this because I'm sure this topic will be encouraging to all of us. I'm saying this because all the speakers whom we have are quite enterprising, and not only enterprising. I'm sure when you attend this session, you'll be able to say why I'm saying this. So the topic for today is success stories of Millennium Ventures and modernization of plant. And to take over this topic, we have, an equally young and a dynamic personality, Mr. Path Thakkar. Can we have his? Yes. So Mr. Path Vinod Thakkar, we all know in Ishre is very dynamic. And just to introduce him, he has done his MSc in Building Services Engineering with Sustainable Energy from Brunel University, London, and he's a BE Mechanical from Mumbai University. He has around 7 years of working experience in the field of cold chain equipment manufacturing. He is constantly working on innovation in the field of refrigeration, which shows that his passion for the topic and why he's here as the moderator. He's presently involved in Make in India shifts happening in the refrigeration equipment manufacturing sector in India. I'm sure Parth will make this next 1 hour, 15 minutes, very enthralling. Parth, over to you. Before that, I would like to, uh, I cannot miss this. We would like to I'm going to say thank Daikin, our gold partners, for the RefCall 2021. They're one of them because of which, RefCall, you're able to experience RefCall. Thanks, Daikin, for that. Over to you, Parth.
Thank you so much, Sagar. And thanks for the wonderful introduction and the heavy weight I feel on my shoulders now. So, so all I can say is thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you again for giving me this wonderful panel to host today. We have four very dynamic personalities working in refrigeration right now. And they are dynamic not just by their personality, but they're dynamic by the work they are doing as well. And this is something which is got to do a lot with the next generation of cold chain equipment coming into the industry. This is something that's got to do with the next generation of people operating with the cold chain equipment, and this has got a lot to do with how we operate in the future as far as refrigeration is concerned. So I would take the opportunity and first thank all the dynamic personalities here who are going to speak today. Thank you for sparing your time, and thank you for preparing your wonderful presentations and making it here. Introducing each one of them, I would first I would like to go in the order that they're going to speak today. First is Mr. Manoj Singh. He's GM Refrigeration Business, Daikin Air Conditioning India Private Limited. He has graduated from Aligarh Muslim University, started with DGM operations at Chandigarh region, and then moved to Delhi as head channel business for Delhi region. His second last assignment was as GM RA business before moving to refrigeration division. He has worked with various other companies like Hitachi, Carrier, Voltas, Samsung, Onida, ETA, VIP in industry in different roles. His total experience is approximately 25 years and mainly with the air conditioning and refrigeration industry. So welcome Manojji, and thanks again for coming here.
Thank you, Parth.
Our second speaker for the day is Mr. Rajat Gupta, a very dear friend, and having worked with Rajat in the past, I know him, personally, and it gives me immense pleasure to introduce him here today. Rajat Gupta, co-founder and current CEO of Tesol, With his strong inclination towards technology and his passion for product development, Rajat is the mastermind behind Tessol's proprietary technology and is its chief innovator. Rajat brings in deep understanding of product design, technology commercialization, and market entry strategy, and has been instrumental in leading the organization from its inception to date as its CEO. A mechanical engineering from IIT Delhi in 2003 and an MBA from Harvard Business School 2010, Rajat is a first generation entrepreneur and has worked with several early stage startups, multinationals, and venture funds across India, Europe, and the US. So, thanks again, Rajat, and welcome you to today's webinar. Next speaker for the day, Ms. Khushbu Shringare, Director, Tropicool Car Gadgets Private Limited. She finished her post-graduation in computer science from Ferguson University, Pune, and shone in her first job at an American enterprise data protection company. Around the same time, her father, an IIT Mumbai graduate, left his senior position at an MNC to set up a company dealing in automotive electronic products, which was registered as Tropicool Car Gadgets Private Limited. This was in 2002. And Khushbu kept wondering about the family business and she would be happier working for Tropicool instead. In 2008, she spoke to her father and he agreed for her to come on board. Her personal measure of success as a businesswoman is directly proportionate to the sparkle she sees in her son's eyes. And that's a very wonderful measure to have, Khushbu. And I again welcome you here and thanks for making it today. The next presenter is Mr. Akash Agarwal, CEO of New Leaf Dynamic Technologies Private Limited. His passion to create impact in the farming sector drives him to understand key problems to eliminate food loss in the supply chain. For 7 years, he's traveled in remote villages across 9 states to understand the market demand and adaptation cycle for cold rooms. This led to development of biomass-powered refrigeration technology for cold storage, pre-cooling, ripening to reduce post-harvest losses in the food supply chain. He has applied for 2 patents and authored a paper in Elsevier Journal, won 15 plus recognitions from worldwide presented technology on various media platforms. So Akash, it's our pleasure again to see you here and thanks a lot for making it. Now, going ahead, I would like our first speaker, Mr. Manoj Singh, to now start with his presentation and take this session ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Parth. So I'll start my presentation. So Parth, hope my presentation is visible and I'm audible.
Yeah. Both are perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. A warm welcome to this RefCode. First of all, I would like to say good evening to all of you. Definitely in this pandemic times, everybody should be safe. Your families are safe. So that is one of the most important part. I'm really privileged to be a part of this panel of brilliant speakers. So thank you for giving me this opportunity as a RefCode. RefCode is definitely one of the mega event which I have heard, though I have been the air conditioning guy since beginning. So now I have been working with the refrigeration field now with Daikin India. So as we all know that Daikin, after successfully establishing itself as one of the most prominent player in the air conditioning industry, now we are starting this refrigeration product range in India. Actually, we have acquired various companies across the globe. So now those companies are under umbrella of Daikin. So we are slowly bringing them to India. So just to take you through what the Daikin is. Daikin basically a company headquartered at Japan, Osaka. So this is now a 24 billion company with the more than 245 consolidated subsidiaries across the globe. Our core competencies are the heat pump, inverter, and refrigerant control products. So Daikin is definitely the #1 company in terms of HVAC equipment turnover. Daikin's main focus is into the R&D. So we have got the R&D footprints, which are 18 in numbers across the globe. And we can proudly say that we have got one in India also at Neemrana. We have got our plant at Neemrana. So here in India, we are having the R&D center. Our presence in India is basically with the 11 branch offices, 15 resident offices. And we have got more than 10,000 channel partners across India, 500 authorized service partners, and more than 2,000 people are working with us. So this is our engine of growth, our state-of-art factory at Neemrana. So we are having a huge capacity building up here at Neemrana. So various certifications we have acquired, ASME, RE, ISO 9001, ISO 14000, OSAS and all. So we have got the 40-acre land here at Neemrana. So it is a 4,150 million. The investment was done in 2010. So this is the R&D Innovation Center. Basically, we have got all the testing facilities here, best-in-class fully equipped labs, psychometric labs, anechoic chambers, psychometric labs with 3, 5, 11 and 25 ton installed. Then we are having the product reliability tests like CFM measurements also. So taking you to the philosophy of Daikin, basically to create new value by anticipating the future needs of the customer. So contribute to the society with new innovative technologies and realize the future dreams by maximizing the corporate value. And our policy is to develop suitable products for Indian customers. So customizing the product as per the Indian needs is definitely in the core of our R&D centers. Explore the customer requirement at regional levels and develop new products. This is our policy. So skill enhancement, actually Daikin is spending a lot on skill enhancement. Basically with the 4 pillars of success, we can say with proud, we are developing the center of excellences. We are acquiring various technical institutes to develop the future workforce. So various institutes in the diploma, in the engineering colleges, so we are acquiring them to develop as a center of excellence. Then we have got, we are proudly say that we are chosen by Government of India and Japan to develop the Japanese Institute of Manufacturing. So Japanese way of manufacturing we are promoting at Neemrana. And basically various collaborations with the institutes and the training, the internal trainings also, Daikin focuses a lot on this. So now we are here for the refation, the Indian cold chain. What the industry, the key facts are. So Indian cold chain is still evolving. This is what we feel, not well organized and operating below capacity definitely. So Indian cold chain is expected to grow by 18% CAGR in next 5 years. This is what we perceive. Increased investment in the modernization of existing facilities. So a lot of investment is coming from government and private organizations. Most equipments are used as the single commodity like potato processors you can see in various cities. So those are now outdated. So those needs to be replaced. And the need for the cold chain, India is the second largest producer of fruits and vegetables. So it contributes 11% to the global production of the fruit and vegetable. So we need to actually preserve them with the refrigeration systems. So being the largest milk producer, it is actually very surprising to know that we produce 240 million tons of the milk produced last year, but we have got the refrigeration capacity available of for 120 million tons of milk only. So this way we are wasting a lot of food. So 20 to 30% of fish production is annually wasted in India. So that definitely needs to be looked. And 25,000 unregistered slaughterhouses are there across India. So we all know that they are lacking in the chilling facilities. So this is the, I think, business which we should look at. So coming to the key growth drivers, definitely government is promoting a lot with food parks and cities. Basically entry of multinational retail giants, growth in the retail markets, and the changing in the taste and preferences of the customers also. So you can see there's a huge growth in pharma sector, dairy sector, frozen food market. So major push by increased investments in the modernization of existing facilities and establishment of new ventures via private and government partnership. Government is also promoting a lot about the cold chain industry. So value chain, we all know, it is starting from the procurement point to transportation, storage, distribution, and the end consumer. So everywhere we ought to have the refrigeration facility available with us. And basically the markets which we serve are the various markets, some to jot down here, the oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, nuclear energy, the beverages, food processing definitely, and the other pubs and restaurants, so retail and distribution center. So many opportunities are available for refrigeration industry. Coming to the market segmentation, basically we can divide this market into 4 segments: stationary refrigeration, transport refrigeration, and industrial refrigeration, and utility refrigeration products. So we are covering almost all the spectrum as of now. But being the new entrant, it will take a little more time for us to be present in every sector. In stationary refrigeration, we have got Daikin products, and we are manufacturing them at Neemrana. We have got DRM, which is the Daikin refrigeration Malaysia. We are importing from Malaysia. Then Zanotti from Italy, AHT from Austria. So these are the stationary refrigeration products. The transport refrigeration, we are having the Zanotti. So we have started that here in India. Industrial refrigeration, we have got J&D Hall company. This is now a Daikin Group company acquired by Daikin. And the unitary refrigeration products are AST and Daikin. So these are basically the various sectors we are covering. Our partners, as I told you, it is the AHT, Zanotti, J&D Hall, and Hubbard. So Hubbard is also a UK-based company into the industrial refrigeration product. So coming to the refrigeration segmentation, Daikin, like I told you that we are covering the Daikin commercial condensing unit range, which is available +5 to -45 degree centigrade evaporating temperature, available in recip and scroll both. We are using the eco-friendly refrigerants like 404 and 134A. Zanotti is one of the most prominent company in based at Italy. So Daikin has acquired that company. So we are having the range available +5 to 25% degree room temperature, complete solutions in various refrigerant categories. Then Zias is also a product from Zanotti. So they are having the inverter-based technology in this Zias range. So our main focus as of now is the cold rooms, definitely. So we have aggressively started this product range. As I told you, the fusion scroll and fusion reciprocating compressors we are using for our condensing units. The range is available in medium temperature from 0.5 HP to 10 HP. And medium temperature, we have got a scroll range, which is 2 HP to 15 HP. Then low temperature range, which is available from 1.15 HP to 8.25 HP. Then in the scroll, we have got the low temperature range available from 2 HP to 10 HP. So we have got 5 series available with us for the cold room business. So product features are basically, as we know that Daikin is known for quality, so ease of installation, definitely. And the various other features we have added, we have got the IP54 rated control panels, which are flame-proof. And now coming to evaporating indoor unit, we have got from 2 HP to 14 HP indoor units we are making here at Neemrana. So this is the this completes the entire range of the cold room business. We have got another product which is available with us from Zanotti. This is basically the Uniblock. So we have got 3 models available: straddle mounted, wall mounted, ceiling mounted. So we have got the product available in the different temperature capacity, -25 to +15 degrees centigrade. So this works up to +35 ambient, and definitely the eco-friendly refrigerant. So this is definitely one of the wonderful products in cold room business for ease of installation. Now we have acquired the AST, which is a company based out of Austria. We have got this deep freezers available from 200 to 400 liters, then island freezers. So this is one of the flagship product of AHT. So now it is a Daikin Group. We have started marketing here in India, starting from 400 liter to 810 liter. It is a frost-free product, very low noise, only 44 dB. Then we are using 100% CFC and PFC free refrigerants here. And coming to multi-deck chillers, it is AST giving the multi-deck chillers as well. So this range also we are bringing here to India. Again, wonderful product available from 1500 liter to 3000 liter capacity. So this is our hanging freezers. This is also the product which many customers are using here in India as well. We are bringing this here. Coming to our industrial refrigeration, J&D Hall business. So J&D Hall basically a company acquired by Daikin based out of UK. So it is making the cooling capacities available from 175 to 3,384 cubic meter per hour. Then the main thing to highlight here that bearing life is 1 lakh hours. So this is the main feature of the J&D Hall compressors. So we are having the Hall screw compressors here for different ranges. Then this is the range which we would like to show here. The Hall screw open type, then HSM range, then HSS semi-hermetic range. So complete range of industrial compressors we have got under the J&D Hall business. This is the new development from J&D Hall, frame 4, 5, and 6. So these are the few new models. So this is the range available for Indian market. Process chillers, We have got 4 ranges here: semi-hermetic single screw compressor package, then semi-hermetic single screw glycol chillers, then open single screw compressor packages, then open single screw glycol chillers. So this is available from +10 to -45 degrees centigrade. So these are the various ranges for various applications. I would not like to go in the details here. So we have got, as we discussed, the transport refrigeration also is available with us with the brand name of Zonoti, which is now Daikin brand. So we have got all the short haul, medium haul and long haul vehicles for which we have got the machines available with us, direct drive units, split units, then diesel monoblock units, then diesel undermount units. So these are the various ranges. I would not like to go into the details here because this is a time limit. So coming to the various, these are the various applications for the transport efficient units. We have got the zero units also available from Zonoti. Then we have got the Zonoti units available for the bigger vehicles as well. So various applications which are shown here for different applications of transport efficient. So I think I was a little fast, so I have completed my presentation. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So so over to you, Partha. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Manojji, for the complete lowdown on what all products you are now catering to in the refrigeration segment. And it was definitely quite enlightening to see the range that is now available with Daikin in the refrigeration segment. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now over to our next speaker for the track, Mr. Rajat Gupta. So Rajat, over to you now. Please take the webinar ahead.
Thank you, Parth. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I've been fortunately a part of the ISHRE and the ASHRE team with all colleagues like Parth and mentors and seniors who have guided me through a lot of what we've gone through, right? And I thought this would be an opportunity for me to share some insights into the journey that we have had in building our organization to wherever it is right now. And the idea being that maybe there are some points that may help other millennials and other sort of new entrepreneurs to sort of adopt cooling cold chain as a part of their lives as well. Because I think in some sense, refrigeration has not been considered to be as trendy and as new age as it actually has the opportunity of being. And I thought a quick look into what we have gone through and how we have built the organization to where we are right now could be of interest to fellow colleagues and millennials. And also maybe if time permits, and I would quickly run through our understanding of cold chain and where some of the opportunities and the new trends have brought the market opportunity. So I'll start with our own innovation journey, which started in 2013, and I'll sort of refer our journey more closely in the next slide. But essentially, any journey that starts with some sort of an idea. And in our case, the idea was a certain technology which was looking for a market. And with that, we started working in the refrigeration space. We started creating products, and creating products as we went into the market, there was constant feedback, and you constantly keep on evolving, and you try to sort of figure out what essentially will create the best product market fit. And I think for an entrepreneur, starting from a technology into any business or a commercial enterprise, the product market fit is a very, very important milestone. And I'll say milestone for an entrepreneur, especially who is in the innovation space, is that in most cases that market does not exist. Right? So if you are building something which is already being sold in the market, and you're building something which is probably more competitive, little, better performing, cheaper, etc. So it's a ready market which is willing to absorb your product. But as an innovator, many a times, and I'm sure Akash will also cover that in his part of his presentation. But it's always a challenge to prove that, see, I am the right solution for your problem. Right? So when we started in 2013, as I said, this was a technology called thermal energy storage, looking for an application. And in that application, I decided to go ahead with the cold chain in comparison to an HVAC market, which is a much bigger market. Because cold chain seemed to be, even though a smaller, but a more amenable market. It was a space where people were looking for solutions. There was a lot of curiosity in terms of figuring out what all can be done, how can costs be lowered, how can efficiency be improved, how can utilizations go up, etc., etc. So from that standpoint, I thought cold chain was a more approachable market, and using the technology, we directly went on to make trucks. Now these trucks are all cold trucks. You plug in the regular power. And there is a condensing unit which you see in the front. Inside there is PCM. It freezes the PCM and it stores energy, and then after that it maintains energy. In other parlance, in other technologies, it's also eutectic. So there are multiple applications of this which have existed in the market. What we were trying to do was to make it much more accurate, much more scalable. And there were many value propositions. We did it for about 3-4 years, completely onto trucks. And then one of the things that we realized is, as we were in the second loop of product into the market, we realized that the market was not completely ready for something like this. There were parking issues. There were lack of charging points. We could see that people didn't have stable electricity, so there were issues and service issues, etc. because of that. And so in 2017-18 was when when we had the electric vehicles also coming into the market. And there were two ways in which they were doing it. They were either plugging in, or there was something called a battery swap. So we said, okay, why don't we change the process, and instead of plugging it in, we do a swapping of the batteries. So the same technology, but essentially using smaller packs, smaller forms and shapes, and then using them to store the product and maintain temperatures. And that solved a lot of our problems with respect to parking spaces, because you could park the truck anywhere. You didn't need to plug it in. You could use it for the number of hours that you wanted to use. There was no permanent change in the structure that you needed to give you a lot of flexibility. And this is not only a technology innovation, but essentially understanding what fits the market needs as of now, right? So being ahead of the market in some sense, many a times becomes a very proud thing that we were ahead of the market, and we were much more advanced. But the important thing as an entrepreneur and a business is to figure out what is the right thing at this point of time, right? Knowing what should happen in the future. So we did this. I think at this time we also had the market respond. There was a lot of e-commerce growth, and everybody was looking at how to deliver things in a more let's say sustainable and a more reliable manner to all our customers. And I'll touch upon that maybe a little later in the trend slide. But this is how we evolved. We further then started creating different PCMs. We had the liquid, so we went into chemicals. We then started doing these pouches. Now, if you order ice cream from Swiggy in Mumbai and Pune region, you get this ice cream along with our pouches. So we kind of, I think we found some sort of a market and a technology combination where we are able to add constant value to customers and still sort of make it in a viable and a profitable manner. So I think that's the journey that an entrepreneur would need to undertake, and especially in a physical world like that one of cold chain and refrigeration. one will need to have the amount of patience to sort of go through this in a very systematic manner without losing hope. And so I thought I'll put in a couple of takeaways that I could bring as a part of this journey. So one was, I think, selecting your market. And I think I still, sometimes feel whether I should have started looking at a bigger market like a HVAC rather than going into cold chain. But I think that's a critical decision for one to make, where you need to see where the highest probability of you penetrating the market is compared to which is the largest market, because sometimes the largest market may not be the most accepting of the kind of innovation that you're bringing into it, right? And the second piece with respect to market is figuring out what is the sub market where you will be the best fit, right? And where you will be able to make a significant mark for yourself. The second, and I think one of the most important points that I figured out, was collaboration, and that this is something which I haven't seen too much in the HVAC in the cold chain space, where a lot of people are actually competing on very, very common products and grounds. Margins are low. You're fighting for all sort of business. But I believe that the cold chain is now offering opportunities which are much beyond sort of just the traditional few things that people used to sell in the market. And if it was not for collaboration with people who are, of course, a part of this eminent forum, Parth himself, a lot of people who helped us understand how to build things, and a lot of people who helped us come to whichever level. And many a times those partnerships may last, may not last, but I think it's important to be open and find partners and who can help you build things, because all of these are multi-functional, multi-technology. There are chemicals, there are plastics, there are metals, refrigeration, so all kinds of things involved as a part of this. Third is to champion your customer's business. So one part of the market that you identify, you need to champion it in every form or shape. So it should be, you should be the go-to person for that particular market. It may not be the largest market. It may not be the most sort of, I would say the lucrative market, but it should be a market which should define you as one of the champions. And anybody who works in that space should know that you are there. And that's the only way you can make a mark amongst all the large name and large players that you have in the market who already have, a lot of brand equity. Yeah. And finally, I think the willingness to do something or undo something that you have already built is very important, because you need to have the passion and the commitment to say that I'm willing to break, or I'm willing to stop what I was doing for many, many years, and I will just do something else from tomorrow onwards. So that's a very difficult decision to take, but in the interest of business and in the interest of your own sort of passion, one may need to take that decision, because very well knowing that this is actually what the market wants, and what you may have been doing may not be the right thing to do at that point of time. So these are a few takeaways that I had in this section. And if I have a couple of minutes, I would just run through our understanding of the cold chain and a couple of opportunities in there. So this is for us the cold chain. So traditionally, when I started looking at cold chain, it was all about wastage. It was all about farm gate, farm level, and that's a real problem. I in no form or shape want to undermine the level of opportunity and the problem that exists at the farm gate. But in our understanding, the cold chain was a full chain, and when the full chain delivers value only when the end customers pay for it, right? So if you store something in a farm, or you store something in a cold store, and maintain the quality or maintain certain level the freshness of the product, but if it reaches the customer in a shape where he can't differentiate between one which is coming through a cold store and one which is not coming through a cold store, then there is no value. Because at the end, wastage is a part of what you are gaining as value. So somebody who buys something 5 rupees a kilo, and with a 20% spoil at 6 rupees a kilo, if you can do something for 50 paisa a kilo, he may buy it, right? But if you but when you are able to present something to a customer, and that's a lot of these brands have been able to do that. If you're able to present a thing with a good quality to a customer, he's actually even willing to pay more. And that's why I come to a few of these trends which have redefined the way our supply chain models have been working. They have redefined the way where cold chain has become an integral part of a brand experience. And I think when one looks at cold chain as something which is helping a brand deliver its promise to the customer, is when you see that there is so much of value in what you're trying to build. Right? E-commerce has been completely disruptive, direct to home delivery models, and it's all about sort of customer perception, because when a customer looks at an ice cream that he himself has bought from a store and is probably a little soft and melted, he's accepting of that, but he's not accepting of somebody who delivers to his doorstep and has ice cream which is a little melted. Right? So e-commerce has defined and in some ways also spoiled the customer for choices. It has spoiled customers for they've raised their demands, and that's something which is going to define our the investments and the use of cold chain going forward. The second has been, customers have evolved. They have become more discerning. They have become, they have a lot of choices. Again, going to e-commerce and D2H models, which is direct to home models. But one of the things that the customers are also seeing is that they are able to now differentiate between, let's say, a common and a large player that makes chocolates and a gourmet chocolate model. There are so many new products that have come into the market that it's the large players who used to dominate the market from they may still be very large in market penetration and in market share, but overall the new models, the rate at which the new brands have taken up the market share is actually very, very attractive. Meat delivery is a very typical example of that, with Licious, Fresh to Home. We've got so many chocolate brands that have come up, and extremely premium and ice cream brands. So all of them have actually created a very wide range of choices that a customer can get, and that's where he is now able to differentiate between quality, and they are charging a premium for giving them the satisfaction that a brand is promising. Right? And the third trend, and we've seen that happen over the last few years, last 2 to 3 years more, and during COVID, it has actually taken up a significant leap in terms of people thinking about sustainability, people thinking about, so as consumers, as brands, as retailers, as e-commerce players, everybody is thinking about how to reduce the amount of plastics, how to reduce the amount of fossil fuel which is used. The trucks which I was showing you in the last 2 slides, they were really, we used to find it very difficult to actually sell those trucks in 2014-15. Now with the diesel prices going up and people becoming more conscious, it is something that we are, even though we may or may not want to actively sell those, but something which is in great demand. So sustainability has become now, in my view, very much a reality, and people are willing to pay top dollar to get there. So I would thank you all for listening to me patiently, and I'll end my presentation here. I hope this was of value to at least some people who may be looking at cold chain as one of the key sectors and the key growth engines for our overall supply chain and economy going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajat, for the enlightening presentation again, and thank you for giving us a lowdown on how you went through your entire journey, and what all you did over the years, what worked, what did not work. Of course, I was part of a lot of that journey for you, and I'm happy about that. And somewhere we could work deeply and on a very deep level with each other. So that makes me proud of being part of your journey as well. And somewhere it feels that because people are now moving more towards sustainability, somewhere the thought that you had is now ingrained into people's minds and into these brands ideologies and philosophies. And somewhere even the costs and all are now something where people can make utmost use of what you are doing for them. So that's great to hear, and thanks a lot for being here today. And we'll expect you to be here until the question and answers session, so that people can ask you whatever their queries are, and you can speak with them one-on-one.
Thank you. Thanks, Bharat. Appreciate it.
So over to our next speaker for the track, Ms. Khushbu. So welcome, ma'am, and over to you to take the session ahead. I think you're on mute. We are not able to hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Parth. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Over to you.
All right. So yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. When I was invited to speak at this forum, I was told that there aren't many women in this refrigeration industry, and so they would like me to speak more about my journey in this industry, how I landed up here, and how we've brought our company to a certain level today and built our brand. So I'm glad. I'm not going to talk much about my business, more about the journey today, because talking about business I do all the time. So I'm a second generation entrepreneur in our family business, that is Tropicool, and we make mobile refrigeration products. Basically, we make products for last mile delivery, portable refrigerators for the two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and the four-wheeler vehicles. And we are in the similar space like Rajat's presentation showed, last mile delivery, delivery to home, e-commerce delivery is the space that we work in. And I look after the new product development, building the market for our products. And recently we've taken up the new initiative for Make in India. So I'm driving the initiatives to indigenize, localize our products here in India as much as possible. So, at the time that my father started this company in the year 2002, I was working with an MNC IT company as a product development engineer. So I switched in 2010 and left my cushy corporate job and moved into our SME space of the company to help it grow. And when I joined, I realized that we had good products, but we had a lesser known brand, and there were a lot of things that could be done to grow this organization. But I was dealing with two challenges. One, I was neither from this industry, and nor did I have a formal, education in the field of refrigeration. And the third challenge was that my father said, you may have some professional experience, but you will start at the bottom in the company, and that was like challenge number 3. But I took the risk to see what I could do with it and push it to the next level. And challenges motivate me, keep me going. So the first thing I did was I started traveling. I traveled across India, meeting our existing base of customers, new customers, exploring what customers thought of our products, what they needed from our product, whether we were really solving the right need in the industry. And I must have traveled maybe in 2 years more than 1 lakh of kilometers across the country. But I have to say that the industry was very receptive, and even though I was a lesser, I didn't know much about this industry, but there was a lot of help that came from industry experts, everybody, colleagues, and always I've got a lot of acceptance in this industry. So yeah, I traveled, I learned everything on the job, like they say, and I took things ahead from there. I think, but what I brought to this, our SME setup was just having a systematic approach from my background of working in an IT company, also being very, very process driven, which small businesses usually struggle to have these processes and systematic approaches. And I thought that this is something that is familiar to me, and that's where I started, and I brought those changes about internally in the organization. So, I would say that as a message for a lot of young women entrepreneurs, I'd say let challenges motivate you. Let the challenge motivate you. And if you think that there is even a 10% chance that an idea or your product or anything that strikes you is going to succeed, then go for it, because you have nothing to lose. But you must take it as a motivation to go for it. And women, especially more than men, we tend to choose careers that are comfortable rather than try something new or be in an industry where there are fewer women. So it's all the more harder. Women have to push themselves harder to make it in industries like that, like our core engineering or manufacturing industries. This is also, of course, it has to do with the fact that we play so many more roles, like being homemakers, mothers, daughters. So that also sometimes tends to tell us, that it's okay. I think the challenges and challenging jobs can be done by someone else. We can, look after our own responsibilities. But yeah, that's what I say, that we need to push ourselves harder, that much harder to work in this industry. When I started traveling, I used to travel leaving behind my 2-year-old son. And today he's 8. And every trip that I would leave for, he would say, "Mom, why do you have to go?" And that was the one of the hardest thing ever for me to do. But and I had to do it over and over again, and I had to tell myself, and I had to push myself out of the house and say, "No, I'll go and I'll be back soon." But a major part of doing that was because I could do that because I knew that I had built a support system at home with my family, my husband, and I knew that my child would be well looked after while I'm away. So these are, the little experiences that I think every woman goes through when in her journey of her entrepreneurship journey, or it can be her work life journey. And it is important that, we seek help when, as entrepreneurs, be it men or women, and take help wherever we can get it. It can be from family, or it can be professionally. I've been lucky. Whenever I have reached out to my friends in the industry, role models I've had, even through, LinkedIn or other social media, customers, suppliers, whenever I thought that this is something that is out of my forte and I tried calling somebody, I've always got help, and people have helped us out. And sometimes, we 90% of the time you will get the help, 10% maybe you may not. But I would say I would encourage entrepreneurs and also women to take the help. I mean, reach out to people like me, reach out to people who are there in this forum. There are so many dynamic entrepreneurs, and I'm sure that you will get all the inspiration you need to move forward. So yeah, that's my second message as a woman entrepreneur, that never hesitate to say I need help, because we all go through this journey and we all go through its ups and downs, and sometimes we all say, okay, what next? What do I do? I'm stuck. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help, or be afraid of being judged. So I want to talk about basically the refrigeration industry per se, and why, maybe why we have fewer women in this industry. So I just want to state some facts about the current industry representations. So there are the Fortune 500 companies with the highest representation of women on boards financially outperform companies financially with the lowest representation of women on boards. Another study says that gender diverse teams have higher sales and profits compared to male dominated teams. And also one of the studies says that gender diverse business units have higher average revenue than less diverse business units. And this is my experience as well. I have tried to build a very gender diverse team in my organization. I like to encourage women to come and work for our organization. And I know that women find comfort in the fact that there is a woman director in the organization, and they do I hire them easily. But the real challenge actually is in retaining them. So today, of course, we are living in good times where there are a lot of women in the workplace. Women are in leading positions in large companies. But if you notice, most of these women are predominantly in the banking and finance industry, media, hospitality, or the IT industry. And the gender balance in these industries is more or less 50-50. But there are still very few women who are choosing, maybe the refrigeration industry or the core engineering manufacturing industry like ours. So in my opinion, banking and finance and these established industries where women are present in a large number, they tend to have a lot of pro-women policies. They support a lot of programs for women. They have very safe travel policies, and their work environment is very women friendly. And all of those factors actually make it possible for women to stay back in these industries, because women tend to drop out very easily out of their careers due to the various stages that they go through in their lives. But it's, as employers, it's our responsibility somewhere, or we have to realize that what can we do to ease that transition for them and help them stay back in the organizations. So to everybody who's listening, who's from this industry, from what I have seen, my experiences, we can do simple things like bringing about a change in our working environment in our factories. It can be as simple as providing good hygienic washrooms for women. It can be safe travel policies. Women are very hesitant to travel. Their families are hesitant to send them out to travel. So that is something that if we address, maybe have childcare centers for women. We can not only then hire good talent, but we can retain them long term. And so these I think are a few ideas that I had, that I think if we all adopt, and I know that I have seen so many women engineers who join my organization, and they are fantastic. I mean, their enthusiasm is fantastic for the first few years, but over time, as their responsibilities increase, they start shedding their responsibilities, or they want to take less challenging roles and responsibilities. I have personally tried, I try to mentor such women and tell them that, you should not regret this tomorrow when you're taking a call. You should decide where you can push your limit and take up your career, and we should support them if they for the periods that they want to take a seat back. I think we have to support them as their peers in the industry. So yeah, I'll end this note on my third message, which says that let's change some of the policies, some of the environment in our organization, in this industry, to retain women employees, and let's see more gender diversity in this refrigeration industry. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Ishre, to speak here. Over to you, Parth.
Thank you, Khushbu, for sharing your experience with us. And I feel somewhere, we all are equal contributors of bringing in more women into the industry today.
Absolutely.
And somewhere we all have that onus on us to do that, because being very frank, I personally believe that women are much more productive than men at the workplace. At the same time, we have proof for that, because we as manufacturers cannot work only by words said by the mouth, or
correct,
started by the word of mouth, and we have to put things on paper. And today we had a project at hand during COVID, where we were making vaccine freezers for a particular company. And that project being huge, we had to involve contract labor sometimes. So when we used to do that, we had some sometimes we had to incorporate female workers. Sometimes we had to incorporate female workers, on the shop floor. And then what we used to observe is, even though they used to be on the shop floor for much lesser time because of the overtime restrictions, because of the travel restrictions that you were speaking of, we still used to find their work to be more on time, more particularly and meticulously managed, lesser involvement of supervisors on their head compared to the male workers, and much more productivity overall. And these were the local villages, the local ladies from the villages, typically known as the Adivasi, females. And we have some videos shot during that project, where you will see that at one particular point of time, for almost a week, while that project was shot by us on video, we had more of the female helpers than we had the male helpers.
Wow,
because they were helping us achieve the numbers. And my wife is also a working woman, and she takes equal interest. She's a doctor, but she takes equal interest into our business as far as marketing is concerned. At the same time, she tries to be as much involved as she can, taking interest from time to time. At the same time, I feel even Rajat is contributing somewhere or the other because he has his own wife involved with him in business. And that's the reason I'm saying somewhere we all are responsible for bringing that shift into the industry. And there is only motivation to bring in that shift. There is no demotivation as of now.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
thanks for bringing so many things to life, and thanks for sharing your journey with us. And small things like even the washrooms being available, small things like even just motivating them from time to time when some household things might come up is all that it takes.
Yes. I'm glad you shared your experience, and I think, with you and Rajat, and you already have, your better halves are already contributing to so much.
Yeah.
I think we have very bright times ahead, but we should consciously all take the onus to bring in more young women talent.
Exactly. We thank you for leaving your corporate job, like the job in US that you said, and we thank you for making it to the refrigeration industry in India and contributing here. And Nivedita ma'am also does a lot as far as women in ISHRE and women in ASHRE are concerned. And both these wings, ISHRE and ASHRE, support women membership a lot, and they support women participation also a lot. So hoping to see you more and more on this platform, and hoping to see more women come up in the future where you don't feel or you don't feel the need to say that I'm the only female on this platform.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bharat.
Thanks. Now on to our next young gun for the day, Mr. Akash. Akash, can you come on camera?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much. So over to you, and please take it ahead. Thank you.
You can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
So thank you so much, ISHRE, for inviting me and my company New Leaf to present as part of this RefCold 2021. And today I'm going to talk about modernization of cold chain through biomass powered refrigeration technology. So we know food loss is a critical issue worldwide, as 1/3 of the total produce that is harvested and for the human consumption is waste or lost. But transport or storage using cold chain can minimize this food loss. Unfortunately, utilizing the cold chain from getting the fresh produce from farm to the table has its own disadvantages. One being the greenhouse gas emissions. So building a cold chain comes at a price, because a cold chain requires a 24/7 power source, as the conventional cooling or refrigeration is power driven. Availability and cost of power is a huge challenge in India. So in some states, availability is a challenge, and that means you have to use a DG set in replacement. And in some states where great power is available, the cost of power is very high. Third, power generation is still from coal or thermal, which means the emission factor for the grid in India is very high. So which means that we are creating a huge carbon footprint for the foreseeable future. Also, a very high growth in the cold chain infrastructure in the coming decade would negate any food loss benefits that would accrue through increased greenhouse gas emissions. So we should not only look at the economic ROI, but we should also look at the climate ROI when we look at the cold chain. So what do we need to do? We need to turn our cold chain green, which means move on from electrically driven to a thermal activated technology like adsorption refrigeration technology. Move on from grid to other sources of energy like biomass, which is abundantly available and which is a renewable source of energy, having zero carbon emissions. Move on from using synthetic to natural refrigerants like R717 ammonia. So what do we achieve doing that? We move on from operating cost to savings in the operating cost. And that is the benefit that the industry is looking at. So here is one such case study at the farm level, where farm waste to store farm produce at the farm gate can be achieved. So this is a banana ripening cycle where bananas are being bought at the farm gate, unloaded at the site, separated from the branches, sorted and graded, crated, put inside the crates and ripened in a biomass powered refrigeration cold room, where the primary source of energy is biomass, and the consumption of biomass is as little as 40 kgs per day. So which means if you are ripening, say, a ton to 5 tons per batch, your cost of ripening is a minimal of 200 to 300 rupees a batch. Second, how can we bring green cooling for the India's retail and e-retail chain? So as we all know, there is a increasing demand for perishables at doorstep delivery, as Rajat had talked about it earlier. And each of the distribution center located on the outskirts of the tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3 cities is handling approximately 50 to 200 metric tons or more of perishable produce on daily basis. So using conventional cooling would incur very high energy bills, because this facility is being operated 24/7 and year round, because the need for doorstep delivery is a year round need. Also, currently the refrigerants that are being used have a very high global warming potential, anywhere above 2000. So there is a need of innovative solution, both having a minimum carbon footprint and a lowest possible operating cost, which means a solution that can reduce the cooling cost compared to the existing solution. So here we worked with one of the India's biggest e-retailer, installed a biomass powered refrigeration system, retrofitted with the existing cold room of a 20 metric ton capacity, running at a temperature range of 2 degrees Celsius. So this fully automated refrigeration unit was intelligent enough to maintain the temperature using only 3 tons of biomass per month. So this biomass can be anything. It can be from loose biomass to pelletized biomass. So it can be from cashew waste, coffee husk, coconut husk, to any kinds of pellets. So anything that is locally available to can be used to run such biomass powered refrigeration units. And these so retrofitting such biomass powered refrigeration unit with the cold room made it a multi-purpose cold room, which means that cold room can be used between 2 degrees to 25 plus 25 degrees Celsius, which means that cold room can be utilized as a cold storage, as a pre-cooler, or even as a ripening chamber. So with this, in Bangalore, we commissioned a 180 metric ton cold storage space, consuming less than 5% of grid power, and that too single phase power. So as an example, we look at the comparison. A 20-ton cold room would have a peak load of 7 to 8 kilowatts per hour, whereas the biomass powered refrigeration unit would only have a peak load of 500 watts per hour. So which means we not only reduced the operating but also reduced the scope 2 emissions by using biomass, and also reduce the scope 1 emissions by using a green and a natural refrigerant, which is ammonia. So here are some of the pictures from the field. So from the front, if you're using the cold room from the front, you would not know that is it being powered by a conventional compressor or by a biomass powered refrigeration unit. So you can store apples or you can ripen your bananas in the biomass in the cold rooms that are powered by a biomass powered refrigeration unit. It is very, very simple to handle. You feed in the waste once a day or once in 2 days, and the biomass fed is automatically fed into the system through a screw conveyor, and the temperature is maintained throughout the day. So just like a normal compressor, this has an electronic thermostat that maintains the temperature throughout the day. So here is some of the pictures from the field where 9 biomass powered refrigeration units are cooling 9 chambers of 20 metric ton capacity each. Over to you, Parth. Thank you.
Parth, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I thought it's gonna go on for a bit more. I didn't know. I didn't come to know that Akash is ending it. So yeah, and I really thought Akash would go on for a bit more and enlighten us more about his technologies and work. And I think amongst the people asking questions will be me also to Akash. So no matter, we'll take up then.
Sure.
And I think we are done with our topics for the day, and I think we are done with our pool of speakers also who are speaking in this track. I once again thank Manoj ji, Rajat, Khushbu, and Akash for having come today on this platform having spoken to us with all their experience, all their journey, and everything that they have innovated and worked upon all these years. And it was really amazing to see how things can be managed. It's really amazing to see how things can be managed with innovation. And it was really amazing to see how things can also be commercialized and taken to the next level. So that is something that we could see today, we could understand today, we could actually go through your journeys in a nutshell because of your presentations, and thanks a lot for doing that. Moving ahead to the questions and answers, I'll just find out what questions have come. I think, Rajat, when you were speaking, Mr. Jamaluddin Khan has asked to share the total market size in 2021 and 21-22 and your volume of units and the amount of these units in India. And, also the volume of your units as direct drive, as, percentage of them as direct drive units, self-powered units, and eutectic units.
So yeah, sure. So I think the number of units typically being done, if he's referring to refrigeration units, a large percentage of these units are basically direct drive or diesel drive units. And in my view, the annual number would be somewhere in the range of about 5,000 to 6,000 units total. I wouldn't have a very clear bifurcation between the different kinds of units, but I'm sure the eutectics are definitely a minority and very focused on certain applications, mostly ice cream applications.
Okay. Rest are only congratulations and applauds to you guys. Mr. Richie Mittal, our past national president, has said excellent views and thanks for sharing. Mr. Manoj Singh from Daikin has given a brilliant innovation by Greenleaf to New Leaf. And before that, Saloni was telling us that you can get the certificate on the platform footer last icon. So just FYI. And yeah, now coming to my set of questions, just to summarize, what discussions and what presentations we had today. All of you, Rajat, Khushbu and Akash, you have been working on technologies which were previously not there in the market, and technologies which are slowly taking shape, and technologies which are slowly getting acceptance into the market. So how do you envision that post-pandemic, this is taking an exponential curve? Starting with the order we had gone in, Rajat, your views on post-pandemic adaptation of your technology?
Thanks, Pat. I also refer to that in the presentation. One of the key factors that has grown multifold and that has impacted our business is e-commerce. And post-pandemic, that's the way to go. A lot of brands, new brands coming up. So I think in the food space, there is definitely a lot of growth potential. And similarly in pharma also, we are seeing a lot of interest. Though I think the cold chain in pharma did not essentially pan out the way it was supposed to, or it was planned or at least showcased. But I think these are definitely most of. Come again?
Because the government took up most of the chunk of the work of distribution, and
whatever,
they did a great job by.
Yeah, but I think people who were operating cold chain facilities were very well aware of the fact that, one large multi-temperature cold storage can actually house vaccines for probably the whole state. So I think that capacity was anyways a little more hype than what it was required. But I think overall the market seems to have opened up, and I think there's a lot of work for all of us to do.
Yeah. Moving on to you, Khushbu, what do you feel post-pandemic things have shaped up like?
Yeah, I think post-pandemic, COVID has actually worked out in the benefit for companies like us who are working in the last mile delivery space. One, like I said, for mobile vaccination drives, we did a lot of work in the mobile vaccination drive space where vaccines had to be, were given, going to each and every corporate, every, societies, buildings, the vaccination drives that were going on. So that model really was phenomenal. And we also did a lot of work for the animal husbandry department, where we are also trying to protect the cattle from COVID, so that it has opened up huge opportunities. Also, for people like us, end consumers, we are used to now, home deliveries. It's made us almost used to home deliveries. We want the convenience of everything coming to our home, and some of the temperature controlled foods are the biggest challenge today, even today, to come in a good quality, like an ice cream that is not melted. So those things have really got these brands to relook at their cold chain, last mile. And they are now looking at very, very effective solutions to please the consumer, please the end user. So yeah, I think it's a very, very bright future for new technologies to come in now.
Over to you, Akash. Your views on same.
So yeah, as rightly mentioned by Rajat, the growth of e-commerce and started with the fruits and vegetable segment, and now you can see seafood, chicken, and meat. Brands like Licious, Fresh to Home have really stepped up that game and tried to build a safe cold chain, temperature controlled cold chain from the farm to the table. Because people are still not willing to go to the crowded places and to buy the packaged food or the raw material for cooking. So this has really enabled the e-retail space to get and I should say to build the cold chain and provide
I think Akash's video is lagging, right? Akash, we seem to have lost you in between.
My connection is unstable. Sorry.
So can you just repeat what you were?
So I was saying that. So I was saying that since people are not willing to still go out to the crowded places to buy the packaged food or the raw material for cooking, so the e-commerce have really stepped up their game to build the cold chain, build the cold rooms at the farm and at the distribution centers, at the collection centers, to safely deliver the produce in a temperature controlled environment to the consumers.
And you have been contributing to them as well. So yeah.
Yes.
So now one more question which I had for you is these biogas plants and the biogas powered cold storages that you have. any challenges in particular for them, or anything that took you a while to overcome on the field? Because that is something that was intriguing me quite a lot, as to how did you get it working, and what amount of R&D went into it.
Not in terms of getting the technology working, but more in terms of changing the customer mindset. Because if you look at the conventional compressor technologies, they are more like plug and play. You plug it, you switch it on. But with these biomass powered refrigeration units, you need to at least refill the biomass once in a day or once in a 2 day. So that is the minimal labor work. But if you are going, there is always a pros and cons. But since adopting renewable is reducing their cooling cost, so the industry is now willing to take up an alternate energy powered refrigeration systems that can help them not only to reduce their overall emissions for the organization, but also to reduce their cooling cost. That is the major part of their the operating expense.
Yeah, and I feel that on farm where these biomass resources are available, and where the farmer would not want to back down in putting some extra effort to save some money, and also to get uninterrupted cooling, because on the farm level even the electricity is not that continuous. I think on the farm level, these cold storages which are powered by biomass will be much more appreciated as well, right?
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. So let me just give you a number.
Akash, we've lost you again.
4,000.
Let me give you a number ke baad we've not been able to.
Okay. So I'll just switch off my camera.
So
typically,
we have a couple of minutes, Parth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So typically a 20-ton cold room running on a conventional compressor cooling technology would consume 4,000 to 4,005 units of the grid power. Yeah. And if you compare it with the biomass powered refrigeration technology, that is what we call green chill, it will consume only 150 units in a month, that too on a single phase. And remaining would be at 2 to 3 tons of biomass consumption. So your saving would be at least 50% in a month. So you are installing it and saving from the day one.
At least that much. Yes. By the figures you said, I feel the savings is going to be even more.
Yes.
Wow. So that brings a lot of hope for the cold storages at the farm level. I think people will want to get in touch with you for the ROI and for the other applications. For now, I thank all you speakers who made it today and who shared your experiences. And it's been wonderful listening to you. It's been wonderful capturing all your experiences and innovations. Sagar, if you would want to take up from here.
Yes. Thanks, Parth. Thanks for being so proactive in the entire session. And I'm sure, though we are coming to the end of the journey of the track and RefCall 2021, the journey for you has just begun. So I'm sure you will keep inspiring the youth to join the industry of refrigeration and cold chain. And I'm sure we have a bright future. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you. I would like to also mention Tessol and New Leaf for being one of the exhibitors. And also, again, I would like to mention Daikin for being our gold partners. I'm sure without you, we would not have been sitting here doing a Ref Call 2021. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are also privileged to participate here. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank
I would
you.
request you all to stay back in, I think, what time we are? In maybe a couple of minutes or so. We are starting the closing ceremony.
Sure.
So